Today, we're going to talk about something really personal. This journey of recovering who you really are, especially if you're part of the LGBTQ plus community. It's all about reclaiming those pieces of yourself that you might have had to tuck away just to feel safe out in the world.
Wow, this quote from Carolyn Scully, it just hits home, doesn't it? It really gets to the heart of the matter. For so many people, just navigating daily life means you're carrying this invisible weight, a silent battle that most people never even see.
So that brings us right into our first section, which is all about that invisible weight. But what is that really? What does that burden actually feel like? Let's break it down.
Okay, so this weight, think of it as this crushing mix of just constant anxiety and hypervigilance. You know that feeling? Where you're always checking your tone, how you're moving, just your very presence in a room, and man, is it exhausting. It's this deep, deep exhaustion that comes from hiding parts of who you are just to fit in, or sometimes just to be safe.
And look, this isn't just some abstract feeling we're talking about. This has real, measurable impacts. The research is pretty clear on this. LGBTQ plus individuals are a staggering 2.5 times more likely to deal with depression, anxiety, and substance misuse. There's actually a name for this. It's called minority stress. It's a psychological concept that basically says when you're constantly exposed to prejudice and discrimination from the outside world, it creates these really deep, long-lasting challenges on the inside.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a really key part of this whole journey, something that people outside the community often get wrong, and that is the reality of coming out.
So a lot of people think of coming out as this one big dramatic moment, right? Like a scene in a movie. But the reality? As our sources point out, it's something you do over and over and over again. Every time you meet a new boss or a new doctor or even just chatting with a stranger on a plane. It's this constant, ongoing calculation of am I safe versus can I be myself?
But, and this is a big but, even with all those challenges, that moment when you do share your truth, wow, it can be so incredibly freeing. Just like this quote says, it's that feeling of, I can finally just breathe. It's this huge weight lifted, that relief of being seen for who you really truly are.
So, okay, with all these individual struggles we're talking about, where does the healing even start? Well, for a lot of people, it begins with finding your people. And that brings us to this really beautiful and honestly life-affirming idea of a chosen family. I mean, for anyone who's faced rejection from their biological family, creating a new family, one that's built on love and acceptance, it isn't just nice to have, it's an absolute lifeline.
And you know what's so powerful about that? It's that feeling of internal safety. When you're in those spaces with your people, that constant hypervigilance we talked about, it can finally quiet down. You don't have to perform. You don't have to explain. You can just be.
But here's the thing. Community is absolutely essential, but sometimes the wounds go deeper than that. So let's talk about 5 common roadblocks that can pop up and get in the way of real healing, even after you found your tribe.
Okay, roadblock number 1 is the performance of safety. This is when that hypervigilance is so baked in, you're still on, still performing, even when you're in a place that should feel totally safe. So the path forward here is about learning something called a mask down framework. It basically gives you the tools to start taking that mask off and find safety from the inside out.
All right, next up, conflict inside your chosen family. This one is tricky, because when these people are your absolute lifeline, even a tiny disagreement can feel catastrophic. It can trigger this massive fear of being abandoned all over again. The way through this is to develop what's called resilient belonging. Learning how to have healthy boundaries and disagreements without that paralyzing fear of being exiled.
That minority stress we talked about, it doesn't just stay in your personal life. It can totally spill over into your career and lead to stagnation. Maybe you find yourself, avoiding that promotion or shying away from a cool new project because it just feels safer to fly under the radar. The fix here is a risk reframing system. It gives you the psychological tools to tell the difference between actual danger and, the ghost of past trauma, so you can finally go for that growth.
Okay, roadblock number 4, the stigma of aging. This is a big one. In a culture that can be so obsessed with being young, getting older can make you feel invisible, like your best years are over. But the path forward is to create a legacy and longevity roadmap. It's a way to totally redefine your later years as this amazing time for mentorship, for purpose, and for really, truly coming into your own. And last but not least, we have substance-linked socializing. Look, for a lot of us, our social life revolves around bars or clubs where drinking is just what you do. So if you decide to get sober, it can feel like you're about to lose your entire community. A social recovery protocol can be a game changer here. It's basically a guide to building a brand new, totally vibrant social life that's also sober.
So, with all these roadblocks, how in the world do you navigate them? Well, the good news is you absolutely do not have to do it alone. There's real, structured support out there.
Now, for anyone out there who wants to be an ally, support can start with some really simple but incredibly powerful actions. It's about learning, it's about listening with compassion, respecting someone's identity, and doing your part to create a safe environment. Those are the fundamentals.
But that raises a really important question, right? What if it's you on this journey? What if you're the one who needs more than just general support from an ally? And this is where a kind of hybrid approach can be just so effective. It really hits both of the needs we've been talking about. You get that deep, personal, one-on-one coaching to really unpack your story. But you also get the support of a private, empathetic community where, guess what, everyone else is on a similar path. And the core ideas behind an approach like this are pretty simple, but they're so powerful. First, it's connection with people who actually get it. Second, it's about real, practical solutions, frameworks for those roadblocks we just went through. And most important of all, it's about empathy. It's about being in a space where you are finally, truly seen and heard for who you are.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a question to think about. After all the hiding, all the performing, all the years of carrying that invisible weight, what part of you, what part of your true, authentic self, are you ready to recover?